On today's show, the Rockets mount their biggest comeback of the season, spearheaded by Reed Sheppard to beat the Spurs. Alperen Şengün completely outplaying Victor Wembanyama and more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the Rockets' biggest come from behind win this season, down 16. They come back. They beat the San Antonio Spurs 111-106, spearheaded by an inspired defensive effort to close this game, and Reed Sheppard impacting the game on both sides of the basketball. Alperen Şengün completely outplaying Victor Wembanyama. Jabari Smith Jr. stepping up late. A lot to get to from this game. First, I'll let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And joining us now to talk about the Rockets' 111-106 come from behind win, the biggest comeback of the season against the San Antonio Spurs, is your weekly co-host, back from his sabbatical, diehard Rockets fan and NBA draft expert Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. And Madison, this was a game that looked like the Rockets were going to mess around and lose. The Spurs led pretty much the whole way, had a comfortable 10-ish point lead for most of the night, and then the biggest comeback of the Rocket season. They were down 16 in this game, and they locked in at the end of the third quarter, the top of that fourth quarter. The defense, the spark from Reed Sheppard off the bench. And really, that's the story of this game. Is I don't know. We're going to have to keep a running log of how many games it feels like Reed Sheppard almost single-handedly helps ignite a Rockets comeback with his impact off the bench. And it wasn't just his offensive impact in this game. It was a two-way impact from Reed Sheppard that got them back into this one and helped them ultimately cross the finish line and get the win against San Antonio.
Yeah, man, excellent game. I mean, the Shepard, man. We're gonna have to call him the Shepard, getting the guy, rallying the guys, guiding them down the pasture for a dub, man. The Shepard, bro. Now, that was an amazing display of talent from one of the youngest players on the team, Reed Sheppard. I mean, not just the offense. We know that he had 12 points in the quarter. We know that he was excellent at his shot making in that quarter. But Reed initiated the offense almost 70% of the time down the stretch in those quarters. And that type of leadership, that type of initiation, creation, is more than just being a guy who can be set up in the corner to be a release valve, catch and shoot guy. No, this guy is making plays, getting the guys into rotation, getting the guys in and out of offense, being sure-handed with the basketball. And that type of stuff is what we're looking for with Reed Sheppard, because it's a long game with him. It's not just winning these games every day. We're trying to see, do we have an all-star, superstar talent on our hands? And those are the type of flashes that we want to see from Reed Sheppard. And this was just another display of, man, if this guy becomes consistent in this manner, we can see how that superstar upside really peaks its head. And so just tremendous kudos for Reed Sheppard for leading the Rockets, for initiating the offense, for calming guys down. He really got us in and out of our sets. He was excellent defensively down the stretch, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But man, I can't give that man enough flowers for the way he played against one of the best teams in the league, the San Antonio Spurs, and an excellent defensive team.
Third best defense in the association is San Antonio. So this is no slouch of a San Antonio defense. Granted, look, second night of a back-to-back for the Spurs. I think you could see that as the game wore on, right?
Yeah.
Their legs had completely left them. 3-point shooting abandoned them. They didn't hit a single three in that fourth quarter after bombing the Rockets on threes, all throughout. They hit 8 threes in the first, 3 threes in the second, 3 threes in the third, and then didn't hit a single three-pointer in that final frame. The Rockets defense really locking in, but also the legs kind of playing a factor for San Antonio. Absolutely. Reed Sheppard finishing in this one with a team high plus 15 points, plus 15 in his 29 minutes. He had 21 points, 8 of 17 shooting, 4 of 10 from downtown, 1 of 2 at the charity stripe, missed one of his little gimmies at the end when the Spurs started playing the foul game. He had the 4 assists, no turnovers, and of his assists, right? Like to your point about the playmaking, right? It's just, this Rockets team, you feel it when he's out there, right? He gives them another dimension, another creator, another guy who sees the floor at a level that nobody else on the roster sees the floor this way. Like it's Şengün, and then it's Durant, and Durant and Şengün see the floor at a certain level because they're both just such talented, high IQ players. And so, Kevin Durant has kind of been made into like the pseudo point guard at times for this Rockets team by necessity. And so you see KD, he's got the right idea for some of these passes and plays, but doesn't exactly have the, either the passing chops, the talent to execute it at the end of the day sometimes, which is why you get some of those, KD-esque kind of turnovers. But some of the playmaking chops from Reed Sheppard, like the kick ahead pass to Kevin Durant in transition, finding Clint Capela under the basket a couple different times, the lob pass that he had to Clint, just watching Reed settle in. And when he's playing like this, when he's playing this incredibly confident brand of basketball and then really letting it flow, like just offensively, right? Completely to the point where he was hunting his own shot. Now he did, he has some moments, right? He had that, they got that one really good stop, and then KD pitched it ahead to Reed, and Reed was like, I don't know, it was damn near a logo 3 that he took right early in the shot clock. And Kevin Durant kind of gave him like what the hell are you doing, man? And like some of those you could kind of do without, but it makes me kind of think back to, something that we talked about with Alperen Şengün earlier in the Ime Udoka era, right? And something that harkens back to players like Manu Ginobili, who Ime Udoka knows incredibly well, or a Steph Curry type, where sometimes you got to live with when guys like that are trying to push the limit of their ability, right? And that 3-pointer that Reed took, that's well within his range. He can hit those threes. We've seen him hit those threes. Was it the best 3 to take in that moment? Probably not. Had that 3 gone in, Toronto Center's rocking. Everybody's like, what the hell? This is like the greatest shot ever. So you live with some of the ill-advised or tough contested threes because he's got the insane talent ability to make it. The 3 that he hit with the hand in his face with the shot clock running down, just on the move, bailout 3, cans it. And that was part of that momentum building run that the Rockets had to get themselves back in this game to run away with it in that fourth quarter. And that's the thing that you're missing out on when you don't give Reed these chances. And he's clearly a kid that feasts off this, he needs confidence. He needs to feel like he's going to be, not pulled for the slightest mistake. I do think Ime needs to be a little bit softer on him as far as like, give him a little bit of a longer leash, but I also like what we're seeing from him. I think that by and large, we're getting, some incredible production from Reed Sheppard for this team, and that they need that to be able to go far this season.
Yeah. Reed gets in these spurts of rhythm where you can just feel the ignition, and it really transfers to the rest of the team. When when he gets going, he can score in bunches, right? And so, as soon as Reed hit that first 3 in the fourth quarter in the corner, you could just see a little bit more pep in his step. Then he starts causing turnovers, right? There was I know he's only recorded for 1 steal, which is crazy because I felt like his hands were incredible all game, but it was because he was knocking the ball off guys' legs. There was one play against Dylan Harper where he knocked the ball off his leg, went out of bounds. He had another steal where it was like back to back, like and you could start to feel the momentum that the Rockets are starting. All right, we're finna get this burst of energy right at the right time to make this push, and that type of energy connected this team and really led them to victory tonight. And it's going to be, like you said, Reed is still a young player. He's making mistakes. There was one play where Kevin Durant was the fourth quarter. He was flashing up on the baseline, and Reed passed it to him, but it was kind of like a lazy pass. He didn't see that the guy was, but playing that passing lane, it was a near turnover. And those are the things that Reed has to clean up, right? But as you said, we have to give him a longer leash to explore his game. But we also have to be careful with not messing with his confidence when he, makes too many mistakes. So right now, Reed is flashing. We want him to continue
almost like protecting him from himself, right? Because
exactly.
if you throw him to the wolves, you put him out there and he, has a stretch where he gets, mistake after mistake after mistake, right? That can be really hard on a young player. So I guess from that perspective, I can understand I kind of protecting him from himself, but there's just that part of me that's just like, nah, get Reed out there for 35 plus minutes a night, because this Rockets team, the best version of this Rockets team is when Reed Sheppard is playing like this. Yes. And this is the version that if they want to have any kind of a deep and successful postseason run, they're going to need Reed playing like this. So if you can kind of get through the bumps and bruises of it in the regular season and get him ready for the postseason, the sooner you kind of expedite that development, the better off this team will be for it in the long run. But coming up, we do want to talk about the entire Rockets defense taking a step in the right direction late in this game as they put clamps on the Spurs. We'll also talk about Alperen Şengün completely outplaying Victor Wembanyama and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new and exciting, different boosts, bonuses, and surprises. So before tip off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And you know what? This was the biggest comeback win of the season, down 16 against a very good Spurs squad. Y'all know what that means.
Release the hounds.
Go let Locked On Spurs know we said what's up in the YouTube comment section over at LOS. So tell them we said hi. And Jeff Garcia was so kind to come over here and preview this matchup. So go let Jeff know we said what's up in the YouTube comments. All right, Madison, this game defensively, I was losing my mind early in this game because it's like the Rockets refused to guard Julian Champagnie. That dude came out the gate shooting lights out of the ball. And I don't know how many of his triples were just wide open. Yeah. Like the Rockets just complete. And look, I can understand, you mess up on a couple possessions early and it results in a couple wide open threes. And you're like, all right, we were scrambling. We weren't rotating fast enough. We lost track of whatever. After a dude cans like a couple back-to-back threes or like that third one, maybe, just maybe, you think, all right, let's put a guy on him and let's keep track of this guy before he burns us, right? The dude hit 6 threes in the first half. At one point, he had the Rockets doubled up on made threes by himself. That doesn't include the rest of the Spurs squad. He was having the game of his career. Had only taken threes is the other thing too, because Julian Champagnie's not run him off the 3-point line. He's not going to do anything else to you. Mm-hmm. I was losing my mind trying to watch them guard him. They are very fortunate that his legs and the rest of the Spurs team legs kind of left them as the game progressed. But man, like even first play out of halftime was a broken transition defensive assignment, and it led to a wide open Champagnie 3. And I was about to turn the game off right there. I was that furious with it.
Yeah. I mean, the Rockets, sometimes it feels like they're not really playing with a competitive spirit defensively.
No sense of urgency. On defense
exactly. And after you see this guy, a couple plays, make a couple plays, and this is what he does. He's a marksman, and Champagnie will go off on you if you let him. Right. And it really was just the Rockets not paying enough attention, over-helping his specific man. That's not paying attention to detail. You want to over-help? Well, if you're going to have a guy who's over-committing, it has to be Castle's man, right? You have to. It can't be the best three-point shooter in the lineup. It can't be, and it wasn't just him. What's my guy's name on the Spurs? The other wing. Barnes. Barnes also
yeah.
knocked down. Yeah, Barnes also knocked down a couple threes from overcommitments. And the Rockets, the attention to detail, the over and over leaning too much on the defensive side, is sinking into the paint. They did do a good enough job of keeping guys like Castle and Fox out of the paint. And so they got a lot of easy kickouts. And that's what the Spurs do. They're a great passing team. They're a great connected passing team. Their young guards are trying to get downhill and score a bucket or get a kick out to their shooters. That was their game plan the entire night. You know what I mean? It was nothing major about it. But since they're such a good passing team, it often generated good buckets. But another thing, there's a lot of missing effort here from these Rockets, especially in transition. I felt like there were many times where the Spurs just beat the Rockets down the floor. They just beat the Rockets down the floor, got quick buckets on the Rockets, and that's that attention to detail. That's effort right there. And I'm still looking for the Rockets defensive emotional leader on this team. We've talked about this before. And, thank God the Rockets turned that around with in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, where I think Reed Sheppard led as their defensive emotional leader, causing turnovers, getting block shots. And now everybody understands the urgency of the game. We don't have any more miscommunications that lead to a wide open Champagne. Champagne got two threes blocked, one by Alperen Şengün, one by Reed Sheppard in the fourth quarter. The attention to detail, the sense of urgency has come, but the Rockets can't let this happen for a whole half. The Spurs scored nearly 70 points in the first half and only finished.
It was right at 70. They were trailing 70 to 60. Yeah,
it was right at 70. Yeah, right. And then they only finished with 106. And I thought the third quarter, the Rockets were actually decent on defense in the third quarter. Their offense just left them, because I thought their offense, they were actually getting some good shots in the first half. But the fourth quarter, I think they married the two. They finally married the two and showed what their potential is. But as an Ime Udoka team, these guys got to bring it every night. I miss the competitive nature of last year's team defensively. You know what I mean? No matter at what type, it's going to be a dogfight. If we're not shooting well, we're going through some woes offensively, like we've been doing in the past. We're going to take you down. We're going to drag you down to the pits of hell, and we're going to fight you. And I think the Rockets are missing a lot of that because they don't have an emotional defensive leader. And I'm looking for Dorian Finney-Smith to show up in this capacity. I know he's missed some time, right? I'm looking for these guys to do it. And Reed Sheppard showed up and was that guy in the fourth quarter, in the second half. And so, if you got to do it by committee, then okay. But Amen Thompson, I'm looking for you to, show up in that way, which I thought he was also excellent tonight with a lot of great blocks down the stretch.
Yeah, for me, as far as the defensive emotional leader, right, the guy that you want quarterbacking the defense, to me, it's got to come down to being one of Amen Thompson or Jabari Smith Jr. And ultimately, I'm more so looking at it being Jabari, because Amen is already shouldering a pretty massive responsibility, taking over the primary point guard duties, trying to walk the ball up, trying to take off whatever pressure he can from Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün, as well as he is, kind of the tip of the spear defensively, right? He's the defensive ace. He's the guy that you will throw on, the best player to try and get him clamped up for a possession or two, what have you. So there's a lot of pressure and responsibility on Amen Thompson already. And frankly, he's, kind of a quieter, more mentally locked in guy. I don't know that he's ever going to be your demonstrative yelling, bleeding hard on his sleeve type guy. But Jabari can be that guy. Jabari was incredibly vocal early in his career and has been vocal. So can Jabari be that guy that's going to have a fire that never goes out, right? A fire like a Dylan Brooks or a Fred VanVleet, and kind of inspire the rest of the team to follow in his example of playing, every defensive possession with 110% energy, not taking any plays off. That's the identity that the Rockets built for themselves defensively over the first 2 years of the Ime Udoka era. And obviously you had a lot of roster changeover. You're missing a lot of key pieces due to injury. And because of all these extenuating circumstances, all these factors, this Rockets team defensively has moments where they're able to lock in, where you see there's the defense that they were missing from last. There's that top five, just chokehold defense where they can make a team go scoreless for an extended stretch, right? I think it was it was 5+ or 6+ minutes of game time that the Spurs failed to score any points, like something absurd like that, which, last season, it felt like they were good to do those like pretty much once per game. It felt like the Rockets had, a stretch where they could hold a team scoreless. Now it's a lot more rare that it happens, but when it does, it shows two things. It shows, one, this team is still capable of doing that. They just need to be emotionally invested in doing it, right? To your point, you saw all those guys in the fourth quarter. Everybody was playing with a sense of urgency, right? You saw Alperen Şengün close out with the block on Julian Champagny. You saw guys rotating. You saw guys playing physical on defense. That's the kind of defense that if they played that way every single night, you give yourself such a better chance, especially when the offense goes through these ridiculous lulls that it's prone to going through at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson, when the last time you just seen a team get into, an offensive rhythm against the Rockets, and then a guy just takes a hard foul on them? Just to ruffle some feathers, mix it up.
Like a Dylan Brooks hard foul? Hey, we're gonna kill the flow of the game right now.
Champagne, you just hit 5 threes. The next time down the court, I'm gonna run straight through you. You know what I mean? And guys, that changes people's mentals. You know what I mean? The game within the game. Exactly. That gets in guys' psyche. He's no longer thinking about, I just hit 4 threes in a row. He like, man, this guy got me messed up, right? But you get him out, you know what I'm saying? That headspace. Yeah. And that is the type of stuff you got to have a guy on the team, an enforcer in that manner. And in this year, that's the biggest thing this team has been one of the biggest things this team has been missing.
And I just want to, as a quick, just because I already know there's going to be some some of the anti-KD truthers out there like the trade was wrong, they should have done it. Look, one of the reasons things look so sideways is because, the team is suffering from a lot of the same symptoms that they had last year offensively. And that's because Kevin Durant has basically become the team's point guard at times on the floor down the stretch. And so because you don't have Fred VanVleet, Kevin Durant becomes Fred VanVleet. He's the guy initiating the offense. The defense keys up on him. And then you have to rely on the other guys to beat him, which, to the Rockets' credit, in this game, the Spurs did a great job down the stretch of trying to take KD out of the game. Keldon Johnson did a great job being physical with KD. There was that one play where, Alpi had a phenomenal game, but he had a few turnovers that were a little questionable here or there. But he had that one try to dribble handoff to KD, walking the ball up the court, and just completely telegraphed it. And Keldon Johnson just shot the gap and forced an easy turnover. And those are those mental discipline moments, right? Where it's just, you can't just go through the motions. You got to be intentional about everything you're doing, especially against a young top tier team like the Spurs that has no quit. They're going to give you 100% every possession. And so it was good to see the Rockets, and the young Rockets in particular, step up down the stretch of this game. Alperen Şengün with a clutch bucket late on Luke Kornet. Reed Sheppard with his clutch buckets, and just his overall impact as far as igniting the comeback. Jabari had 7 of his 17 points in that fourth quarter, I believe. So it was good seeing different guys kind of stepping up in the absence of Kevin Durant, because the Spurs were committing so much attention to trying to stop him down the stretch of this game. But coming up, we do want to talk about Alperen Şengün flirting with a triple-double, going head-to-head with Victor Wembanyama and completely dominating him in this matchup, as well as final thoughts from this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything so much easier. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees full conversation threads, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And Madison, the battle in the middle of this game between Alpi and Wemby did not disappoint. Maybe it disappointed if you're a Spurs fan, but Alperen Şengün, a monster game, 20 points, 13 rebounds, 9 assists, had a couple block shots, did have 4 turnovers, but it's kind of to be expected with how much he handles basketball. And maybe a couple of those turnovers weren't exactly his fault. We'll talk about that in a second. 7 of 13 shooting. And just when you compare the head-to-head matchup between him and Wemby in this game, 14 points on 5 of 21 shooting from the floor, 0 of 7 from downtown, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover. Brick City for Wemby. And Şengün started this early in the game. Literally like one of the first couple buckets he had early in this game, right? The first one, he just completely bodied Wemby under the rim, knocked him to the floor. Kind of everybody froze because they thought it was going to be an offensive foul, and then he just goes up and finishes it. And then the very next possession, that kind of like he bumped, a little bit with Wemby on the post up and then got just enough separation to get to his fadeaway and like knocked down the fadeaway as he was falling to the ground. It was a monster night for Şengün. Didn't quite earn the triple double, but a really impressive game. And he really gets up for these competitions against Wemby, man.
Yeah, man. It was really great game to see from Alperen Şengün. I mean, once again, you can see Alperen Şengün using his physicality, using his strength, using his ability to put a shoulder in Wemby's chest to get wherever he needed to get on the floor. And I like that he was very patient with his game, getting guys involved early. I mean, he had by halftime, he had a very well-rounded game. He was already sniffing a triple double. And so once again, I felt that. Once again, Şengün, quarterback of the team, doing everything, rebounding, doing all the things that the team need. I thought he was great defensively too, man. I mean, that closeout, like I mentioned in the second segment, that closeout on Champagny to get that block, that is your center, guys. That is our center, closing out and making those plays. And Şengün is consistent. We know what we're going to get. Once again, another great shot down the stretch when we needed a bucket to keep us ahead. I mean, Alperen Şengün gets his flowers every night. You know what I mean? So I think it's just him coming in and putting in his work over and over again. And that in and of itself is something that you really got to be celebrated, that we have a player that good on our team. And
I did like, I felt like there were a number of possessions where like guys that were receiving passes from Şengün weren't, I feel like they were very intentional, especially on some of like the DHO sets, of just getting right into an action, right? Like getting the pass from Şengün and then immediately like attacking downhill or taking like a one dribble pull up into a jumper or a 3-pointer or what have you. I feel like the Rockets offense a lot of times is just very indecisive in like what they're trying to do, where the guys just are taking too long to make their decisions. And it really felt like the offense was a lot snappier, especially in the quarters where it looked like it was flowing a little bit better. The second quarter, the fourth quarter specifically, some of those sets looked really crisp, which is, hopefully something that can be a trend moving forward. And I will say, we should have talked about this when we were highlighting the defense there in the second segment, but Şengün didn't actually guard Wemby a lot in this game. He guarded him, a handful of possessions, but it was actually the combination predominantly Josh Okogie and DFS did a number on Wemby, right? Like there were a couple points where Wemby being big and tall, right? Just, would get offensive rebounds, second chance opportunities for San Antonio, what have you. But I do like Ime Udoka using that playbook of just, hey, we're going to put the smaller defender on Wemby. We're going to use Okogie. We're going to use DFS. They're going to get up and under him, right, and really make life difficult and really use their physicality to their advantage, because smaller players get away with a lot more on bigger guys usually. And I do think that I liked a lot of what we saw there. And to your point about how the rotations and the game plan execution was so poor in the first half with leaving Julian Champagny open, I thought the major adjustment that they made, especially in that fourth quarter, they were leaving Keldon Johnson open, and it worked. He went 0 for 3 from downtown. That was the guy that they were rotating and helping off of, and the guy that the ball was winding up in his hands down the stretch, and he kept bricking shots. And so that was a good game plan adjustment of like, hey, let's stop giving Champagny all these open looks and let's force the worst 3-point shooter on their roster to hit them. And, there have been games in the past where Keldon Johnson has burned the Rockets from 3, but it doesn't happen consistently, right? He is a weak link in the Spurs outside shooting. And I will say, like, for Şengün against Wemby, I love these matchups because I feel like Wemby is Wemby. He's a one-man walking top 5 defense, and he obviously has, having a monster season, just got his first all-star starter nod, all that good stuff. But knowing that the Rockets have a center that can have these types of monster games against a guy like Victor Wembanyama, a guy that they're going to be having to deal with for the next decade plus, if things, work out for Wemby health-wise. I just love knowing that the Rockets can rely on this type of production for Şengün. My one note would be, I feel like he gets up for these really big games, but kind of sometimes struggles to get up for lesser opponents, right? Like we saw him kind of, BSing a little bit, in some of these games against, like the Pelicans or the Kings or some of the lesser opponents. I feel like and that's not just on Şengün. I feel like it's a symptom of the whole roster is they get up for the big opponents, but they also play down to the level of their competition a lot. And that's been an issue this season. I'll also give Şengün credit for going 5 of 5 at the free throw line.
Yeah. Young team problems, man. It's guys still rolling through that.
Mental discipline.
Exactly. And then, the season is starting to get long for these guys as well, and they've dealt with a lot of injuries. So,
and Şengün's probably realistically, Şengün's probably playing through something right now because he still doesn't look 100% out there. Yeah. So that's absolutely still a factor. But the fact that you can get basically a 20, 13 and 9 game out of a guy that's not playing 100% against the best defensive big man in the association, that speaks volumes about what he's capable of and just how good he truly is. So the Rockets are blessed to have 2 all-NBA caliber talents on their roster, which is why the season isn't a loss, right? Even though they've had some struggles and they've had some issues and they've dealing with some injuries, they've got these 2, incredibly talented superstars on their roster, and they have a good shot every single night to win games because of those 2 guys. Now, I will say, on the injury front, some terrible news that Steven Adams has a grade 3 ankle sprain, which apparently has a timeline of like 3 to 6 months. So we're not going to talk about it a ton here, but just quick update on him. We'll spend some time talking about it next episode and kind of what it means for the Rockets moving forward, how they're going to have to try and, figure out the rotation and who steps up out, without Steven Adams, how that changes their team identity, all that good stuff. But speaking of stepping up without Steven Adams, Clint Capela turning back the clock a little bit in this game. He had a couple good blocks, he was only credited with 1. I feel like he had some really good contests at the rim. He had those, he was on the receiving end of a couple of those really good passes from Reed Sheppard, either in the third quarter or early fourth quarter when they were kind of making their run. Just some quality minutes from Clint in that backup 5 spot.
Yeah. He's going to have to step up. It turns out that was a great move for Rafael Stone to get Clint Capela. That insurance is going to be well needed because we still got, borderline starter level center coming off our bench. So we're going to need every bit of that from Clint. And we know he can do it because he's been a starter in this league. And also just, I want to shout out Jabari. Jabari with another excellent game down the stretch tonight. I thought Jabari as the ultimate release valve. A lot of us have been a little hard on Jabari because he's going through a bit of a shooting slump a bit. And that just happens. That's a part of the game. But once again, Jabari shows you that he's capable of making big shots in big moments. And I want him to continue to play with that confidence, continue to shoot the ball confidently. I mean, I thought it was so impressive, not just the threes that he hit down the stretch, but the pump fake, dribble in, I get to my spot, I know this is money shots that he knocked down over and over again in that fourth quarter. I mean, that's excellent work for Jabari. Jabari still has a chance to be a star in his role for this team. And as he gets older and becomes more and more consistent, because Jabari has been way more consistent, the most consistent he's been in his career this year, even though he just went through a bit of a slump. But we want to continue to see him shoot through this and learn through this adversity because we're going to need him. There are going to be games in the playoffs where it's just not his night. You know what I mean? And that happens to all of them. But I want him to still continue. So the next game, he shoots them confidently because Jabari wasn't having a spectacular game in the early part of this game. But in the fourth quarter, he was a huge release valve because Kevin Durant was kind of struggling. Reed Sheppard was leading the show. Reed and Şengün were leading the show. And then Jabari was oftentimes the guy that everybody would sag off of.
Yeah, he was the guy that teams were because at the end of the day,
that's what they're giving up.
There are 5 guys on the floor. You got to give something up somewhere, right? And they didn't want to give up. You're not going to give up Kevin Durant. You're not going to give up Şengün. You don't want to give up Reed, who's been torching you this whole time. So they had to help off somebody, and you're helping off Jabari and sometimes Amen Thompson. And Jabari made the most of those moments. He had those 7 points, shot 3 of 4 from the 3 of 4 from the floor in that fourth quarter. So you're right. It was a good impressive kind of closeout to the game for Jabari in that frame. It really was Reed Sheppard with his 12 points and Jabari with his 7 points down the stretch. Alperen Şengün had that one bucket on Luke Cornett. Kevin Durant had a few assists in that quarter, but it was really the role players stepping up off of these attempts and the gravity that was being generated from Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün. Absolutely.
And this really was, I feel, that a team win. If you look up and down the shooting chart, Reed Sheppard in 29 minutes took the most shots, right? But there are several players who took double-digit shots and shot a good percentage tonight. And these guys, I think that's how these guys are going to have to play, even though they have stars. A lot of times, that's team's game plan. You're going to have to step up and make those plays. And I think Jabari did that tonight. And I think the offense looked more smooth because Reed Sheppard took the onus on himself that he would run that offense in the fourth quarter. And when he did not run it, we saw it get mucked up when guys just giving the ball up too quickly, right? It seemed like they were tired. There was one play, we talked about it before, where I'm immediately passed it to Reed after inbound, and Reed tried to give it right back, but he looked the other way. He like, Reed, you running this show. You know what I mean? and I think some of that stuff still gets mucked up because we don't have a true point guard. But when Reed's feeling it, he needs to take the reins of this offense. We're gonna have to take some lumps that come with it. But these highs are what we need, and we're gonna need them down the stretch. In the playoffs as well. So once again, love that from Reed tonight. Love that from Jabari tonight. I felt like there was a sort of poise in the way that he handled as a release valve, not getting rushed into his shot. He learned that through these last couple games, I feel. So, yeah.
My main critique for tonight's game would simply just be, there's still a part of me that feels like you can't just be so willing to let your best player be like schemed out of a game, I guess, with Kevin Durant. And some of that has to do with just, some of that has to do with Kevin being a bit more aggressive, playing off ball, coming off screens a little bit quicker, harder. And some of it has to do with the miscommunication of guys not being able to get him the ball. There were points in the game where Kevin clearly wanted the ball, and whether it was Amen or Alpi or Reed, like either failed to get him the pass. But then there were also points where Kevin just wasn't even looking for the pass. Like there were a couple opportunities the Rockets had in transition where Şengün had the ball and tried these like kick ahead passes, and both times Kevin wasn't looking for it, right? And it's like you got to be aware, like if you're trying to maybe get some of those opportunities, get out and run, get out and get some easy transition opportunities. Everybody's got to have eyes on the ball and know that both Alperen Şengün and Reed Sheppard, they've got two different guys on this roster. And Steven Adams, when he was healthy, right? You got multiple guys who look for those kick ahead passes, those down court passes where you can get, a one-on-one opportunity in transition before the Spurs get their incredible half court defense set. So this is me splitting hairs in a win, but ultimately these are things that are going to have to be cleaned up for them to have a shot at the upper echelon teams down the line. But a good quality Rockets win against a quality San Antonio Spurs team. We want your thoughts on this win. What did you think about Reed Sheppard's performance, the defense locking in down the stretch of this one, Alperen Şengün's near triple-double performance? Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Madison, you know the drill. Let everyone know where to track you down at.
Find me at Madman Leaks on Twitter. Come talk Rockets basketball and NBA draft.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thanks so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.